In a bold attempt to rebuild civilization, the expedition encounters new forms of life and unexpected threats that have risen from the ashes of the old world. Climate change, pandemics, and war had made Earth uninhabitable. When the tipping point came, the ruling elite fled and resettled on a distant planet called Kepler-209. 2 generations later, Project Ulysses was launched to answer a critical question: could humanity return to Earth? The first mission failed. Contact with the crew was lost shortly after landing. 15 years later, the inhabitants of Kepler-209 sent a second team, but they, too, faced immediate danger. As their capsule entered the upper layers of Earth's atmosphere, it was damaged and went into an uncontrollable descent. The team crash-landed, but a few members survived. When Louise Blake regained consciousness, she saw Earth for the first time, and was shocked to discover that there was still breathable oxygen. Injured, she crawled toward her crewmate and found Holden dead. Their commander hadn't survived the fall either, but Louise's partner, Tucker, was still alive. With less than 7 hours until the next communication window with Kepler-209, they had to act fast. Their mission: collect samples, transmit the data, and prepare for evacuation. But with Tucker unable to move due to his injuries, Louise took full responsibility. Determined to explore the area no matter how terrifying it seemed, Louise set out alone. Earth was no longer the planet it once was. Tides were extreme, and much of the land was now underwater. As she studied the terrain, Louise noticed signs of life and chemical activity previously thought impossible. Simple organisms, and even more complex forms, had somehow survived the apocalypse. The planet was regenerating. It appeared Earth was healing from the brink of destruction. Using a biometer, Louise tested the water and local organisms, checking how her body responded to the new environment. The climate was harsh, but her blood work was stable, and she could breathe without a mask, an unimaginable luxury back on Kepler-209. During her exploration, Louise encountered a jellyfish-like creature. She had never seen anything like it. When she tried to collect a sample, the creature stung her, leaving a burn on her skin. After treating the wound and securing the sample, she noticed the weather beginning to shift and visibility rapidly decreasing. Tucker also reported environmental changes and urged her to return to the capsule to transmit their findings. Together, they were now certain Earth was habitable again, and the wealthiest people who had once fled the dying planet could finally come home. On her way back, Louise is swallowed by a thick fog and loses all sense of direction. She can't find her way to the capsule or locate Tucker. Struggling to move, Tucker manages to crawl out of the damaged pod and fires a flare into the sky, hoping to guide her home. But just moments later, he hears something unsettling nearby. Alarmed, he tries to seal himself inside the capsule. A few minutes pass before he sees shadows flicker past the porthole. Thinking Louise has returned too quickly, he relaxes, until she radios in, confused. She's still 2 kilometers away from the landing site. That means whoever is near Tucker isn't her. With only a flare gun for protection, Tucker loads it and fires directly at the figure forcing its way inside the capsule. But before he can react again, he's struck in the shoulder with an axe. Listening to the radio transmission, Louise realizes Tucker is under attack by someone, or something, unknown. She rushes back toward the crash site, but finds only deep drag marks in the sand. Their capsule has been taken. Following the tracks, she spots movement through the scope of her assault rifle. She's outnumbered but ready to shoot, until a sudden noise behind her reveals she's surrounded. There's no time to fight. She's struck across the face, and everything goes black. Louise awakens some time later, trapped in a deep pit filled with water. It turns out the attackers are survivors, humans who've formed a hidden colony on the ruined Earth. They speak an unfamiliar language, and neither Louise nor Tucker can explain who they are or why they've come. Tucker is critically wounded, bleeding out, and in desperate need of medical attention. Climbing up the rusty metal fencing that lines the pit, Louise pleads for help. She spots a small girl watching her, but loses her grip and falls back into the water. Eventually, the survivors toss down a rope and allow Louise to climb out. They don't plan to rescue or release her, but they demand she treat an injured young man, one of their own, who had broken into the capsule and was shot in the face with a flare. His face is shredded with embedded fragments, and he's losing a lot of blood. Louise agrees to help, but the others don't trust her. Instead of giving the man anesthesia, one of the colonists knocks him unconscious with a brutal blow to the face so he won't resist while Louise works. As she removes the shards with tweezers, she discreetly pockets a few vials of medicine, hoping to use them later for Tucker. A small girl notices this but says nothing, curious about the mysterious woman from outer space. Back in the pit, Louise gives Tucker an injection and tells him what she's discovered. Their command center has been destroyed and data transmission is no longer possible, but the biometric scanner with the critical information is still intact. If she can find the first spacecraft that landed on Earth 15 years ago, she might be able to send the data to Kepler-209, giving humanity a chance to return home. Realizing he'll only slow her down, Tucker says goodbye and takes a poison capsule to spare himself pain, suffering, and a slow death. With every member of her team gone, Louise falls into depression. The only thing that keeps her going are memories of her father. Once, he gave her a box of matches and promised they'd see each other again before she burned the last one. Now, only a single match remains, but Louise holds on to hope. 15 years ago, her father was among the astronauts sent to Earth, and she truly believes she can find him amid the chaos. Toward evening, the tide rises, flooding the pit. Louise begins to drown, but a group of survivors pull her out just in time. Still keeping her as a prisoner, they transfer her onto one of their ships and cuff her in place. They're nomads who travel wherever land remains. Their community includes children, relationships, even love, concepts Louise finds foreign. She watches it all with amazement and confusion, unable to understand how they've managed to survive when Earth's natural resources and living conditions have been utterly destroyed. Haunted by thoughts of her father, Louise refuses to let go of hope for a better future. She remembers him telling her about trees, believing they would be key to restoring life and making Earth habitable again. In the morning, reality crashes back down. Louise is returned to the water pit. Watching from inside, she notices several boys playing with a red case, the one that contains the biometric scanner and medicine. She also spots the mysterious little girl again and tries to make contact. The girl throws her a piece of chalk, letting Louise draw on the pit walls. Through pictures and gestures, Louise manages to explain that she came from another planet and needs the red case. The girl, whose name is Mila, promises to steal it for her, giving Louise a flicker of new hope. But hours later, someone approaches the pit, not to rescue her, but for something far more disturbing. Instead of the red case, several girls climb down into the pit and throw in an infant. Then a tarp is pulled over the top, hiding the entrance. Louise realizes something terrible is happening above ground. Climbing up to peek outside, she sees a brutal battle raging. It turns out that Earth isn't just home to survivors. Warring clans have formed, fighting viciously for dominance. The camp is under attack by armed enemies, and the children were hidden to protect them. At one point, a fighter discovers the pit, but Louise hides in a corner while the others submerge underwater, managing to survive the violent onslaught, at least for now. Some time later, a surviving woman named Narvik lowers a rope, allowing everyone to climb out of the pit. She searches for Mila and resolves to set out after her as soon as she learns the girl has been captured. Moved by concern for Mila's fate, Louise decides to follow Narvik and help her. Soon, they stop by some cliffs to eat and drink. During their conversation, Narvik reveals that Mila is her daughter and that she would do anything to save her. Suddenly, they hear Mila's cry, and Narvik spots a group of armed fighters just beyond the ridge. They are preparing a boat to depart, and Narvik readies herself for a fight, but all she has is a signal pistol, incapable of harming anyone. Recognizing that a direct confrontation is doomed, Louise strikes Narvik in the face to prevent her from interfering with the plan. Firing the signal flare, Louise distracts the gunman and sneaks onto the boat. The red case and Mila are there, but escape is still impossible. Precious time has been lost, and the only way to avoid being shot is to pretend to be one of the captives, which Louise does. A few hours later, the prisoners awaken to a sudden jolt, realizing they have reached shore. A colony of armed men leads them into a massive abandoned ship, where a thorough inspection is conducted. Several prisoners and Mila are taken away, and at one point, Paling seizes a firearm from a visitor from space. Suspecting a spy among them, he inspects everyone carefully and even sniffs Louise, quickly identifying her as an outsider, not from this planet. Prepared for the worst, Louise is surprised to find that no threat or execution is planned. Instead, Paling escorts her to the colony's leader, Gibson. There, she recognizes a colleague and her father's former partner, the astronaut who landed on this planet 15 years ago during the first Earth expedition. Gibson recounts what happened after their landing. At first, the survivors welcomed the newcomers like family, but things quickly went awry. When the expedition attempted to report the possibility of returning to Earth, the locals, known as the Dirty, rebelled, destroying all technology and communications. Louise's father became a victim of the resistance, and the people split into two colonies, those simply surviving and those striving to live normally. For protection, they armed themselves and occasionally conduct raids to secure a safe future. Louise explains that the attempts to return to Earth are driven by the disappearance of reproductive abilities. Humanity can no longer sustain itself, sexual characteristics have nearly vanished, pushing the species toward extinction. Gibson believes that here, things can be remedied. Children exist, and he even has a foster son, Neil. While Earth remains inhospitable, with terrible climate conditions, he has constructed barriers to protect against the tides. Additionally, several jet-powered engines convert water energy into electricity, meeting their needs and gradually restoring conditions closer to normal life for humanity. Before taking any active steps, Louise needs to rest and get herself together. She's assigned a private cabin with water and clean clothes. It's here that she notices her reproductive functions have returned to normal, and her period has started. Later, Louise meets with Gibson again, who wants to introduce her to the children. The obedient and curious girls pepper her with questions, but Louise is speechless when she spots Mila among them. Neil is the only boy on the ship, but he receives individual attention and does not attend the girls' lessons. After befriending Louise, Neil shares his biggest secret, a small tree sapling he's growing on the windowsill. Louise remembers her father and asks how Neil learned about trees and their potential to restore the planet's climate. Neil admits that he communicates with someone through the ship's pipes, a person being held in a locked cabin. Intrigued, Louise realizes something is being kept from her. Using a map of the ship, she searches for the cabin and soon discovers her father. He is alive and perfectly healthy but kept isolated from everyone else. Gibson confronts Louise, demanding a chance to explain. He claims that her father betrayed them by falling in love with one of the dirty, which led to the rebellion. Louise asks to see her father, to embrace him and talk privately. He avoids uncomfortable questions but doesn't deny orchestrating the uprising, nor his desire to prevent the wealthy from Kepler 209 from returning. Before she leaves, her father pleads for her to stop the current events on the ship, calling them a mistake, but Louise cannot share his perspective. A little later, Louise steps onto the deck and spots a nearby meteorological station. She suggests using it to transmit data into open space, as it is the only intact, functional device left on Earth. While she can't establish a direct connection, she can send the biometric data. Gibson thinks it's a good idea, but the message must confirm humanity's ability to reproduce. Louise offers to send her own blood analysis, but the biometric device has gone missing, and its location is unknown. That evening, Louise dines with Gibson and his family. Moon Eye tells a touching story about how Gibson saved her and helped Neil to be born, though their relationship feels strange. Gibson is aggressive, insisting that Neil eat properly with utensils instead of acting like a savage. He also shows no warmth or affection toward his wife, as if she were a stranger. A few minutes later, the ship loses power, not due to a technical failure, but because of an attack by the dirty. While trying to return to her cabin, Louise runs into Narvik. The woman begs her to return her daughter, and Louise can't refuse. Something strange is clearly going on. Paling and other armed soldiers suppress a revolt among the dirty, but Narvik manages to deliver one critical piece of information. Only girls are being held here. Alarmed by this, Louise decides to talk to Gibson. She soon discovers that this isn't a school, it's a fertility training center. The wealthy women on Kepler 209 are all over 40. By the time they arrive on Earth, they'll be at least 50 and physically incapable of reproducing. Gibson is preparing compliant girls to carry on humanity in the future. Louise is horrified. Essentially, the entire colony is a breeding farm, where girls are deliberately raised to mate with rich men planning to return to Earth. Soon, Paling finds the red box, but it's empty, and the biometric device is missing. Later, it becomes clear that Neil stole it and hid it inside a doll to prevent Gibson from gaining access to data that could force the wealthy to return to Earth. Back in her cabin, Louise discovers a hidden girl. Paling arrives, demanding permission to inspect her. When he can't find Mila, Gibson's deranged assistant tries to seduce Louise but is rejected. At that moment, he hears the girl coughing and realizes Mila is hiding nearby. Acting decisively, Louise kisses Narvik, not out of affection, but to kill him, forcing him to swallow a poison capsule. After neutralizing the guards, Louise frees the prisoners, including her father. She notices that Gibson has gone to the meteorological station, but not alone. He's accompanied by his adopted son and the boy's mother. Clearly, he's plotting something, and Louise is the only one who can stop him. Her father also reveals that Neil is his son and Louise's younger brother, making it her responsibility to protect him. After evacuating the prisoners and killing several guards, Louise rushes to the meteorological station. Gibson plans to transmit a blood sample from the boy, directly proving that reproduction is possible. Louise tries to stop him, but he is armed and dangerous. He executes Neil's mother and threatens the boy's life before successfully sending the data. Waiting for the right moment, Louise attacks. Falling into the water, she strangles Gibson, but her oxygen runs out. Narvik jumps in at the last second to pull her out and revive her. Realizing the worst is over, Louise takes the opportunity to bond with her younger brother, giving him the last journal their father had left. The survivors return to their camp, now joined by Louise and her father. They understand that sooner or later, the wealthy from Kepler 209 will get the data Gibson transmitted and arrive on Earth, but they'll be ready. They'll be able to protect themselves and build a new, clean society from scratch. Can humanity truly build a new world on the ruins of the old if the same mistakes and social hierarchies keep repeating? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.